All right, what's up, guys? So this is something new that we're trying to do with the Complaint Network. This is something that we've talked about, quite honestly, for the past few months, but it hasn't really been something that we've gotten around to doing yet. We haven't had time. But with Bobby's actually out right now with the flu, and then Zach is out of town, and we got me and Tyler here. Say what's up, Tyler.
What's up, guys?
And other than just sitting around and sorry, I accidentally just clicked on Hulu and I just pulled up the game for a half second. I
Nice.
am watching the playoff game, so YouTube, don't copyright strike that. But something that we wanted to talk about was college football players skipping out on bowl games, and there's about 40 to 42 bowl games every single season, depending on the year. I don't know how they determine exactly determine how many bowl games there are, but I do know there's usually at least 40.
I was gonna
Go
say,
ahead.
isn't it for every team that goes over, or don't? What is it? 6 or 7 wins to get a bowl game?
So if you get six wins in a season, then you are automatically eligible for a bowl game. But that doesn't necessarily mean you will get to participate in one because
Gotcha.
so there's 40 bowl games. That means there's 80 teams that get to participate. So if there's a bunch of teams that have over 6 wins, then not every team is gonna get a chance.
Right.
That's why sometimes you'll see team. I mean, honestly, even teams with 7 wins, not 100% guaranteed. It just depends on the year. So let's talk about the importance of bowl game, or let's talk about football players skipping out on bowl games, and exactly why players may choose to do that, and why people are unhappy about certain athletes doing that. So I have the 2020 or 2019-2020 bowl games pulled up here, and there's only, in a sense, I guess, there's only like 6 major bowl games, which, depending on how the committee selects it, determines which ones will get you into the playoffs. So you have the Cotton Bowl, the Peach Bowl, the Fiesta Bowl, Orange Bowl, Rose Bowl, and the Sugar Bowl. And then this year, the two playoff semifinal games were the Peach Bowl and the Fiesta Bowl. And that's just based on the certain bowl games affiliation. Like the Peach Bowl was SEC and Big 12, and then that was LSU and Oklahoma. And then the Fiesta Bowl, which is ACC and Big 10, and of course that was Clemson and Ohio State. And then the other four have the chance to be a playoff semifinal game. It just depends on the rankings, how the committee matches them up. Like, for example, the Orange Bowl, that's a very popular one. That's SEC versus ACC. Not a playoff game this year, though, although sometimes it can be. And then the rest of the 34 or so bowl games is kind of where the argument starts to take place as to athletes skipping out of these specific bowl games. Like you have certain bowl games that are like kind of historic. Like you have the the Military Bowl or the Idaho Potato Bowl. And then you have bowl games where if you hadn't heard of them, like, we don't blame you.
Yeah.
Like, I'm looking at one right now, the Red Box Bowl. Never heard of it until this season.
Yeah, I think it's something. I mean, we might have talked about it on the show before, but some of the names for these bowl games are just hilarious. And I know it's like the sponsorship and then the name of the bowl, but like
Yeah.
some of them are just so dumb.
Yeah, there's you found a really funny one the other day. I forget exactly what it was. I'm trying to find it really quick. It had like such a long sponsor name that it was
Yeah.
just absolutely ridiculous. Man, it's a shame I can't remember what it was.
I know. I'm trying to think too because it was just the other day. But I mean, some of these names, like the Mitsubishi Motors Las Vegas Ball. Like I know it's just again the same thing, but like when it gets like that long, the Franklin American Mortgage Music City Bowl.
That's a good one. Say it again.
Here it is. I found the one I was talking about. But the Franklin American Mortgage Music City Bowl. That's a mouthful. And then the one that I seen the other day was the the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl. That was
Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl.
um,
Yeah, I see them. I have the Music City Bowl up now. That was Mississippi State and Louisville. Franklin American.
yeah,
But yeah, you have like
cool.
these silly sponsors like the Tony the Tiger whatever bowl, and it's but that should kind of show you like how, I mean, not how worthless they are, but like players to a certain extent may feel the need to, and when I say players, I mean specifically like guaranteed
NFL
top
prospects
to the NFL.
Yeah.
So I guess what I want to ask you, Tyler, is what is your first what would be your initial take on top prospects like skipping out of important bowl, not important bowl games. I'll say the non-college football playoff bowl games.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, obviously, if it's for a college football playoff spot, or one of those games, that's different. I'll be honest with you though, like I even think so you said like there's really 6 major bowl games.
Right.
I think that outside of the 2 college playoff bowl games, maybe the Rose Bowl, I maybe the top 6. I'm trying to think. I really just don't think it's important for players. And one example right off the bat for me this year was Michigan played Alabama in the Citrus Bowl, and Jerry Jeudy, who is the top wide receiver in the nation, he has no reason to play in that game. He just declared today for the NFL draft. There's no reason to risk injury. Now he didn't, and he had a really good game, but did that really do anything for his draft stock? No. We still know he's the top wide receiver in the class. And
Yep.
what is it to him? I mean, it's a bowl game. I mean, that's the thing for me. Like, I just, like, kind of going back to, like, the original thing, like, I just don't understand. Like, I get bowl games, but, like, they just don't seem important to me. They're more about entertainment than anything. And more than anything, I think maybe the big thing that is talked about, or at least in research that I've seen, was having a bowl game basically gets you another couple weeks of practice for like essentially the next season, which gives a lot of the reps to the guys, your freshmen and stuff like that, who might be playing bigger roles in the upcoming seasons. But again, that does nothing for NFL prospects. Like for NFL prospects, I think that it's a good idea to skip bowl games. Number one, for the injuries. I mean, we have a couple articles pulled up, but Jalen Smith is the big one that comes to mind, where this guy was a projected top 5 pick, blows out his knee in a bowl game, and then becomes a second-round pick, which cost him, I believe it was like $14 million or something in the end, where his draft position was. So I just don't get it from that standpoint. And then the other thing is, if you skip your bowl game, that gives you more preparation for your pro days and stuff like that.
So I do. You mentioned Jalen Smith. I do want to ask you this question really quick. So Jalen Smith tore his ACL and his MCL, and then after he underwent surgery, that's when he declared for the draft. So I guess my question for you is, he was only a junior. If his stock fell that much, do you think maybe he should have stayed for another year?
Yeah, maybe in his case,
To like kind of recover against like lesser competition?
Yeah, so in his case, and again, he was one of the best middle linebackers in the country, and again, he was a projected top 5 pick, and and I don't know, maybe he didn't know he was going to fall that much. I'll tell you this right now, I mean, he's a very good player now, and he finally got his NFL payday. But yeah, it's a good question. I think if he knew that his stock was going to fall that much, then he would do it. Just because, again, he missed out on about $16 million worth of signing bonus and contract for where he was drafted. So maybe he goes back to, try to do that. But yeah.
So let me read this quick portion from Wikipedia. This says that that Jalen Smith attended a pre-draft visit with the 49ers, and he got some nerve function tests as well. And then it says, at the conclusion of the pre-draft process, NFL draft experts and scouts projected Smith to be selected as early as the second round to as late as the sixth round. The majority of the NFL draft experts projected him to be a third or fourth round pick. He is ranked as the 10th best outside linebacker prospect in the draft by DraftScout.com and the 11th best linebacker by Mike Mayock. So if I'm Jalen Smith, and I'm now I will say he already declared at this point, and I know it's kind of like iffy if you like, undeclare and then go back to college.
Yeah.
But if I'm Jalen Smith and let's see, I get injured substantially, I tear my ACL, my MCL. First of all, I'm not going to declare that fast. Now, I think there may have been some sort of deadline for declaring. I believe I know the NBA does it, but I'm not sure about the NFL.
I believe there is, but I'm not. Actually, no, that's not true because Tua is actually still up in the air right now if he's going to declare. And he said he's going to declare Monday, but so maybe there isn't. I'm not sure.
Well, so it says Jalen Smith declared on January 11th, and it's the 4th, so I guess he would still have time,
right?
But with Jalen Smith, maybe he just didn't have enough time. But if he pulls out of that draft, I think that's a good thing for him.
I think, yeah, I think that that could be the possibility. Like again, with him being a junior, but. You have a lot of situations where, and this was another one actually I forgot to have you bring up, but former Michigan player Jake Butt, who was he's a tight end. He's still in the league actually on the Denver Broncos, but I believe on Mel Kiper's board he was like the third ranked tight end. On the board, and he tore his ACL in the bowl game. It was against Florida State. I can't remember what bowl game it was, but I remember they were playing Florida State. And he blew out his knee, and like I said, he was the third ranked tight end, and he fell to the 5th round. So yeah, and he was a senior at that point. But it's a tough situation. But yeah, for Jalen Smith, I think I probably would have stayed another year. Again, looking back on it now, hindsight's 2020. He did get his payday, and he is a really good linebacker in the league. Mm-hmm. But he probably could have secured a little bit more with a better draft position.
Right, and just to kind of segue into this, so Jalen Smith, it was in the Fiesta Bowl that he got injured. Now the thing about the Fiesta Bowl is I think that is a member of the college football playoff. Yeah, it is. Of course it is. I'm stupid. But assuming that it 1 year that it's not in the college football playoff, that's still a pretty good bowl game to play in. Last game with your boys. And I know they usually give some sort of don't they usually give players some sort of benefit or payout or something to that?
So well, of course they can't get paid.
Well, not pay, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I believe they get merch and stuff like that. Obviously, one of the things I guess if you're a supporter of them playing in bowl games, they get to go to these places. I know there a lot of the bowl games are in Florida and stuff like that, so they get to essentially have a trip to Florida. But yeah, I mean they get merch and stuff like that. But I guess so a question for me to you is that so obviously the Rose Bowl is a huge game, one of the bigger bowl games, but. So this year it was Wisconsin and Oregon, and Justin Herbert, who is going to be a quarterback, he's one of the top, I would say, depending on where you have him, he's one of the top quarterbacks in the class this year, and he plays in it, and again, he didn't get injured or anything, but what is winning the bowl game to Justin Herbert? Because in that game, I guess you could argue his stock could have went up, but to me, it really didn't. So what's the point of him playing in that game? And I get it's the Rose Bowl, but I just don't Well, maybe I don't know.
So for me, I think the conversation changes a little bit when it's a college football playoff bowl game, even if it's not a playoff game, if that makes sense.
Right.
So, like, for me personally, like, if I'm in the Orange Bowl or if I'm in the Cotton Bowl, neither of which were a playoff game this season, like, I'm gonna play one last game with my boys,
Yeah,
but
I don't
that's
know.
just but like I do understand why someone would want to skip that, because it's like, look, they're just a few months away from the biggest paycheck that they have ever seen in their whole lives.
Yeah.
And that's one of the biggest factors of a player like Christian McCaffrey skipping out on a bowl game. And just to transition over to Christian McCaffrey, the bowl game. So Christian McCaffrey, he played for Stanford, and his team was going to play in the Sun Bowl. The Sun Bowl is not one of the college football playoff games, and it's one of those bowl games where people are like, okay, yeah, like I guess that's an okay bowl game. And he was going to go play against Carolina, and I remember when the news broke out of Christian McCaffrey that he was going to go skip the Sun Bowl. In my head, I was like, okay, good for him, because like that's kind of a pointless bowl game if you're probably the number 1 or 2 running back in the draft. But for some reason, a lot of people considered it like really selfish of him, and like not really wanting to, play the last game with his college team. And it was also met with reaction saying, like this says right here, that college football players might, follow suit in skipping bowl games, which I don't really think that matters too much. But personally, like I think Christian McCaffrey skipping out of the Sun Bowl, I think that was great for him personally, because like a non-important bowl game, he's guaranteed to get at $1 million check, just for going to the NFL draft. Like what else is there to say?
So, and Leonard Fournette was the other one. Those were the two headline guys for that. Leonard Fournette and Christian McCaffrey. It's also like worth noting too, both guys being a running back. Like that's one of the most taxing positions in football. So yeah, I mean, if I'm those guys, no chance I'm playing in those games. And I get the conversation where it's, your teammates with these guys and their family, and you want to go out there one more time. I get that. But since these guys aren't getting paid, and it's a conversation we've had on the podcast before, since, college guys are not getting paid, you have to protect your future, and this is, you get one chance. You don't want something that could have been avoided in a non-important bowl game to affect your future, affect your checks you're getting for the NFL, you want for the rest of your life. Like you want to extend that for your whole future. So I think, again, these non-important bowl games, I don't know. I brought up the Justin Herbert thing because at the end of the day, like I probably would, like if I was in their shoes, like I'd probably play the game. But it's just like I just don't. Maybe for me, I don't understand the importance of bowl games because, like, I get there's a little bit of prestige there, but like, if it's a recruiting thing, like I feel like most of the recruiters are already committed at that point. I don't know. I just don't get it. Maybe it's a morale boost, but
so I was looking at something and it just gave me something I can ask you. Let's take this year's Sugar Bowl as a question, which was Georgia versus Baylor. Now, that game, Georgia ended up winning 26-14. But another thing I want to bring up is the Peach Bowl, which was LSU versus Oklahoma. Now, a lot of people, after Georgia beat Baylor, the argument was made that Georgia should have got in over Oklahoma in the college football playoff. And I think that honestly brought up an interesting question because Oklahoma got blew out, and you know my opinion on the Big 12. Like,
yeah.
It's no secret that I think the Big 12 is probably the worst Power 5 conference there is,
Yeah.
in terms of defense at least. But So I guess that's kind of another question though. So like if you're like a number 5 or number 6 ranked team and you feel like you got robbed of a playoff semifinal game,
Hmm.
then do you go into one of these college football playoff bowl games and try to send a message?
Um, it
Because that seems like what Georgia did to the committee with with their win.
right now, so it's if it's from a player perspective, like a guy who's like a lock. I mean, I guess I don't really. I guess Andrew Thomas, their offensive lineman, is going to be a lock for the NFL. I think he just declared. But I'm trying to think. But I mean, regardless, like again, and I might be downplaying this, but like, what is that to you if you know you're not going to be there next year for the school? Absolutely. Like, I think that Georgia, not for nothing, like I think that it could possibly affect next year's preseason rankings because of like that chatter. Um, you know, again, as a player that's going to the NFL draft, I don't think it really still means anything to me just because I'm not going to be there next year. And maybe that's selfish, but I just feel like the risk is not enough for, like, what is the reward for that? I guess, you get to be called one day a Sugar Bowl champion or winner or whatever, but like it just doesn't for me outweigh the prospects of possibly getting injured. But yeah, for Georgia, definitely as a school they want to send a message, and I'll be honest, I don't think the result would have been different because we've seen what just a few weeks before when LSU played Georgia in the SEC championship game. I mean, LSU blew them out then as well. I don't think any team outside of the top, any team besides Clemson and Ohio State, I don't think LSU would have given LSU like that much of a fight. I think they're that good.
Right.
Um, yeah, in the
So if
top of the
LSU was going to get a cakewalk of a game, it was going to be against Oklahoma. That's what you're saying.
Well, yeah, the thing about the Oklahoma game too is like not for nothing. Again, it was the defense that just was terrible because their offense. It took a while to get going, but Jalen Hurts actually had a half decent game. It's just you can't let a quarterback throw 7 touchdowns in the first half and expect to win the game. Yeah, so it was their defense that killed them, but. Maybe Georgia makes it a closer game, but for me, I just think LSU is the best team in the nation. And I think it doesn't matter who you put them up against; it was going to be a blowout. But yeah, going back to your point, yeah, I think for Georgia, it's definitely a statement game. And if you're a guy, it definitely gives incentive for the guys that are coming back next year to get the win.
Yeah. So let me think of so a player like Jake Fromm though, who is projected to be a late first round pick though. Um, do you think he made the right choice in playing in that game?
Is I was gonna ask first. I don't. Is Jake from? Because does he have one more year left, or is this his last year?
He does have a year left, but he can declare he's a junior.
Okay, yeah. No, I
Most draft boards have him going late first, early second.
that's crazy to me. I'll be honest. I don't think Jake Fromm is that great. But either way, I mean, for him, God, it's tough. Like, I feel like I'm contradicting myself because, like, that guy is like the heartbeat of the team. I feel like he's their leader. So I feel like for him, um, again, I feel like I'm contradicting myself because not for nothing too. Like I feel like it's different. Like if it's a running back, I wouldn't play, but like quarterback, you can kind of game manage where you're not going to get hurt. Like if that makes sense. Like if you're kind of throwing, check downs or doing a lot of runs and stuff like that, like you can kind of manage not getting hurt. But if you're a running back, I mean, you're getting hit every play. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, Jake Fromm is kind of the heartbeat of that team. So like for him, and not for nothing, I think Jake Fromm definitely has room to grow his draft stock. That's a big thing. Like if you can go up in draft stock, I get it. For like McCaffrey and stuff like that in his years, like I don't think he could have or anything. So yeah, Jake Fromm playing, I agree with.
Okay, so do you think you said Jake Fromm isn't really you don't really see him as a late first or an early second. Do you think he should stay another year? I don't, because he has not 100% declared yet.
So here's the thing. If it was any other year, I would say yes. The problem with next year is that there's a really good class. There's going to be a really good quarterback class. And if Jake Fromm had any year to be, a top quarterback, this is the year because it is a relatively weak class outside of what most people are saying is Joe Burrow and Tua. Justin Herbert's there as well, but. So that's a thing because next year you're gonna have potentially like Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think there's room for improvement. And I say I don't like Jake Fromm that much because watching Georgia games, he is like what I hate about the NFL right now, which is just check down after check down, like not a lot of deep passes, a lot of just checking it down to wide receivers on like slants or curls or checking it down to the running back or tight end. So I haven't seen enough out of Jake Fromm to be like, yeah, this guy's going to be great in the league. That's a tough question because if it was any other year than like having to stay and competing with the guys next year, because there's a good chance that if he stays next year, he's probably going to fall back just because of the quarterbacks coming out. But yeah, so it's a tough question. I don't know if I can really answer it. I guess ultimately though. If I'm Jake Fromm, I'd probably stay another year just to possibly get my draft stock up. Because I don't know. To me, he's just not a guy I would be taking with a first or second round pick, in my personal opinion, at least.
Okay, I think that's a fair argument. I think we're gonna wrap up here, though. I just do want to point out though that. It's currently January 4th as we're recording this. I'm hoping to get this up either tomorrow or the next day. There's still one more bowl game, which hilariously is the Lending Tree Bowl.
Yeah.
Which apparently, okay, it says it's been around for 21 years. I've never heard of it until now. There's 40 games and it's hard to keep track of them all. Like that's the Lending Tree Bowl. That's the MAC versus Sun Belt. So, I mean, why would I care?
And I mean, I guess for those teams, it's like, this can get us some exposure, which is nice. So, like, I feel like bowl games are more important out of the top six bowl games, like the New Year's Six or whatever they call them, bowl games. Like, they don't really matter to big teams. But quick question before we end: national championship game, LSU, Clemson. Who you got?
LSU. I think if LSU if LSU wins by anything less than 10, then it's a disappointment. I mean, not really, but like LSU, like I will say, like Clemson, like. I actually picked them to win last year when they were not favored against Alabama, which I cannot see a path of victory for them against LSU. And the main thing for them is like, I'm gonna see if I can pull up their schedule really quick from this season. They didn't play anyone. They played a ranked Texas A&M team that finished 8-5 at the time, or 8-5 right as of right now.
Yeah.
And then they started the season with Georgia Tech and then Texas A&M. It's like, look, I will say I cheer for two teams. One is the Vols, Tennessee, and the number two is Georgia Tech. As a Tech fan, I was like, all right, well, Tech is starting 0-1.
Yeah, I was gonna say if you don't lose by 30, it's an accomplishment.
Yeah, exactly, and we lost by almost 40.
I just feel like LSU is like miles better of any team this year, and like I don't know. I mean, what Joe Burrow has done this year and how he has kind of just risen up in the like he's going to be the number one pick, and I don't think anybody. I mean, it was all about Tua this, Tua that, and what he's done to just absolutely propel himself to get the Heisman, to be the best player in college football. It's pretty incredible. But yeah, I would go LSU as well.
Yeah, and going back to Clemson's schedule, they had Syracuse, Charlotte, North Carolina gave them a little bit of a fight, and they dropped from 1 and 2, and then Florida State. You got to beat Florida State, and then Louisville, Boston College, and then Wofford, which is an FCS team. and then go
you
ahead.
can't. I was gonna say you can't always blame them because I mean their conference just kind of sucks. Outside, I mean, there's good teams in that conference. There's not great teams in that conference.
There's always, I will say, with the ACC, there's always like one team behind Clemson that's like good-ish, if that makes sense. But then everyone else is like, oh, we're happy with 6 wins.
Yeah, I mean Virginia was a really good. I mean they won.
Virginia was the team I was thinking of. So so in the month of December they beat Virginia and Ohio State. That's impressive. That's when people started talking. It was like, okay, look, Clemson, like they had a cakewalk schedule, but like at least it seems like they can beat a good team or two if they need to.
And that game against Ohio State, I mean, they looked dead in the first quarter and then ended up coming back. But like I said, I just had to ask that question because I was curious. But I think most people are going with LSU, just what they've accomplished this year. And I told Brendy that if Ohio State won that game, I was going to be the biggest LSU fan you've ever fucking seen. But no, I'm still rooting for LSU.
Yeah, and LSU is currently favored, according to ESPN, by 5.5. I would probably take the over on that for sure.
Yeah,
that's just me though. I don't look. I will say Clemson. Look, they may make it interesting just because of how they've played the past 2 games. But I will say I did not expect them to beat Ohio State. I did not expect that at all.
Yeah, me neither. So I mean, they could surprise again. You never know.
Yep, so we'll see how the college football playoff national championship goes. Let's get it to 8 teams, man. Like, come on, make it more interesting.
Yeah, I know. I want that so bad.
All right, well, that's going to go ahead and wrap up the discussion of the college football playoff bowl games. If you guys enjoyed, leave us a like, share with your friends. We're hoping to do stuff like this more often. So make sure you subscribe, stay tuned. We're live on twitch.tv/ComePlayNetwork. We haven't done a podcast in a little bit, just everyone's been out, but we're trying to get that back on the road.
Yeah, should be back next week.
So yeah, thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you next time.